All right, so the Minotaur. I think we're both excited to explore this one.
Yeah, I am.
We've had a lot of people asking us to cover the Minotaur.
It's a popular one.
It is half bull, half man, classic monster from Greek mythology.
Right.
We've got some great sources to help us understand him.
Absolutely.
Is he just a monster, or is there something more to this story?
Well, I think it goes beyond just monster. I mean, the Minotaur's really woven into those big themes of Greek myth.
Oh, interesting.
Power, divine retribution, even this sort of clash between, like, civilization and those primal instincts.
Yeah. Okay, so where do we even start with this creature? What's the real story here?
Well, the Minotaur, he's usually depicted as having the head and tail of a bull and the body of a man.
Right, that's the classic image I have in my head.
That's the one you see in most classical art.
Okay.
There's a twist. During the Middle Ages, some artists flip that around. Man's head and upper body on a bull's body.
Really?
Almost like kind of like a reverse centaur, if you will.
Wow, that's a very different image.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Minotaur, that's not even his real name, is it? That just means Bull of Molios.
Exactly.
What's his actual name?
Asterion.
Asterion. Interesting.
And he shares that name with King Minos' foster father, actually, which is interesting.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of connections to King Minos when you really start looking into it.
It's true. So this isn't just A.E. Bullman. This is the king's bullman, essentially.
Yeah.
Why a bullman, though? How does a creature like this even, come to be?
Well, it goes back to King Minos and how he got to be the king of Crete.
Okay.
He needed a sign to prove his claim to the throne,
Okay.
so he prays to Poseidon.
The sea god.
Exactly, and Poseidon answers his prayer.
As you do.
Right, and sends him this magnificent white bull.
That's a good sign, I'd say.
Minos is supposed to sacrifice a bull to honor Poseidon, and all is well.
So honor the god, you get the throne.
Simple, right? Well, Minos got a little greedy.
Uh-oh.
The bull was just so impressive. I mean, it was a gift from a god.
Yeah.
Minos couldn't bear to part with it.
So he kept the bull.
He did.
Yeah.
And offered a different sacrifice to Poseidon instead.
Big mistake. You can't trick the gods like that.
I mean, we all know how that goes in these stories.
Poseidon was not happy.
Furious, actually, wanted revenge.
What did he do?
Poseidon called in Aphrodite.
The goddess of love.
Well, they targeted Minos' wife, Pasiphae.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. Scorned god, goddess of love, recipe for some mythological drama.
What did they do to her?
Aphrodite made Pasiphae fall madly in love with the white bull.
Seriously.
Yes.
I know myths can get wild, but falling for a bull.
The gods, they had immense power, right?
Right.
Bending human emotions and desires to their will, that was nothing to them.
Right.
Poor Pasiphae didn't stand a chance.
Oh, man. So what happened? What did she do?
She was desperate. This longing for the bull was consuming her.
Oh, gosh.
She went to Daedalus, the craftsman who built those wings for Icarus. And Pasiphae had him build this contraption. It was a hollow wooden cow.
Okay, I think I can guess where this is going.
Yeah, she used it to get close to the bull.
And that's how Asterion was born.
The Minotaur. Yes.
Wow, talk about unusual parentage.
Right. Born from a king's arrogance and a queen's, well, divinely inspired infatuation with a bull.
Yeah.
It's almost as if he was destined for a complicated life right from the start.
Well, I can't imagine having a half-bull, half-man creature just roaming around is a good look for any king.
No, definitely not.
That's where the labyrinth comes in, right? That infamous maze.
That's right, the labyrinth. Built
Yeah.
to contain the Minotaur, yeah.
It's got to be one of the most famous prisons in all of mythology.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, can you imagine being trapped in that maze?
I think it would be terrifying, right? Those winding corridors, high walls, no escape.
Like a nightmare hedge maze, only 1,000 times worse.
And, if you look at ancient art,
Yeah.
the labyrinths they depict, they don't have dead ends like the mazes we're used to.
Huh. Interesting.
They have this single winding path that leads to the center, so it's like
Oh, okay.
you're constantly moving, but you never feel like you're getting closer to an exit.
Oh, that's got to mess with your head.
Definitely a mind game.
So the Minotaur is stuck in this inescapable prison, but how does Athens get involved in all of this?
Well, the story goes back to the death of Minos' son, Androgeus.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Androgeus.
There are different versions of what happened,
Huh.
but the one thing they all have in common is that he died in Athens.
And Minos blamed the Athenians, of course.
Of course. I mean, he was grieving and wanted revenge.
Makes sense. An entire city accused of killing your son.
He wasn't going to let that go unpunished.
What did he do?
He imposed a tribute on Athens, a terrible one.
Oh, yeah. This is the part of the story that always gets me.
They had to send 14 young people, 7 boys and 7 girls.
Every 9 years.
Right, to be sacrificed to the Minotaur.
Horrifying.
Can you imagine the fear in Athens?
Every 9 years, knowing your child could be chosen.
It must have been like this dark cloud hanging over the entire city.
Yeah, it wasn't just about punishment either, was it? It was about control.
Absolutely, showing everyone who was in charge.
This constant reminder that Athens was powerless against Minos.
Every 9 years, they were forced to send their young people to their deaths.
Trapped in this horrible cycle, and that's where Theseus comes in.
Theseus, the hero.
He couldn't stand by and watch this happen, right?
No, he was known for his courage and sense of justice.
He volunteered to be part of the tribute.
To face the Minotaur himself.
To end this, to save his city.
Such a brave act.
I mean, facing a monster in its own lair, that takes some serious guts.
He had a plan, though.
Did he?
He wasn't just going to wander into the labyrinth and hope for the best.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
This is where Ariadne comes in.
Minos' daughter.
Yeah, she fell in love with Theseus.
Ah, of course, a little romance in the midst of all this tragedy.
Classic Greek myth, right?
So how did she help him?
She gave him a way to navigate the labyrinth.
Okay, how?
A ball of thread.
The classic solution.
Right. It seems so simple.
But in that maze, it was the key to survival.
Theseus tied one end of the thread to the entrance,
Okay.
and as he went deeper into the labyrinth, he unraveled it.
Leaving a trail to follow back out.
Exactly, so he could find his way back no matter how far he went.
I can just picture him, sword in hand, following that thread deeper and deeper into the maze.
The tension must have been unbearable,
The Minotaur's roars echoing all around him.
leading him further into the heart of the labyrinth.
So what happened when he finally found the Minotaur?
There are different accounts of the actual fight.
Okay.
Some say it was a long, brutal battle. Others describe it as a quick, decisive victory.
But he won, right?
Theseus killed the Minotaur.
I can only imagine the relief in Athens when they got the news.
Their hero had defeated the monster.
But they still had to get out of the labyrinth, didn't they?
That's where the thread really came in handy. They
Yeah.
just followed it back all the way to the entrance.
A path out of the darkness.
Back to freedom.
A true hero's journey.
And the end of Athens' oppression.
But there's a bittersweet element to this story, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
Didn't Theseus abandon Ariadne
He did.
after she risked everything to save him?
He took her with him when they escaped Crete, but left her on the island of Naxos?
As they sailed back to Athens.
There are a lot of interpretations of why he did it.
Yeah, I've heard some say he was just cruel.
Others believe it was the will of the gods.
Whatever the reason, it's a sad ending for Ariadne.
It is.
She's a hero in this story too, and she gets forgotten.
And it doesn't end there.
Oh, right.
There's another tragic element to this story.
Theseus' father, Aegeus,
He was waiting for Theseus to return,
watching from the shore.
anxious for any sign of his son.
Theseus had promised to raise a white sail if he was victorious.
A signal of his triumph.
But in the chaos of escaping, he forgot.
He sailed back to Athens with black sails.
And Aegeus, seeing those sails, thought his son was dead,
He was overcome with grief,
and threw himself into the sea.
giving the Aegean Sea its name.
Theseus returned a hero, but at a terrible cost.
A reminder that even the greatest victories can come with a price.
Yeah, it's like a reminder that there are always consequences, even for heroes.
It's true, but we were talking about those different interpretations of the Minotaur.
Right, right. I'm still fascinated by that, like how one creature can have so many different meanings.
Well, it speaks to the power of myth, you know?
Yeah.
They reflect our values, our fears, even our beliefs as a culture.
Yeah, so like the idea of the Minotaur as a sun god,
Right. Some scholars connect him to the Cretan bull cults.
where the bull was a symbol of power, virility,
Exactly. So in this interpretation, the Minotaur is not a monster. He's like,
a force of nature.
exactly, a representation of the sun itself.
That's so different from the way we usually think about him.
It is, and then you have interpretations that link the Minotaur to other cultures,
Oh, interesting.
like the Phoenician god Baal Moloch,
Okay.
which suggests that the myth might be a blend of different cultural influences.
It makes sense. Myths don't just exist in a vacuum, right?
Right? They evolve, they change, they borrow from each other.
So what about those interpretations that see the Minotaur as a symbol of Athenian rebellion?
Ah, yes, that's a very different perspective.
It is. It's very political.
It is. It's about the power struggle between Athens and Crete.
Athens forced to pay tribute, send their young people to be sacrificed.
The Minotaur represents that oppression, that dominance.
And Theseus killing him.
It's a metaphor for Athenian liberation.
They break free from Cretan rule.
Exactly. The myth becomes a way to process a historical event.
To turn a political struggle into a heroic story.
And it shows how myths can be used to reinforce certain ideologies.
But the thing is, the Minotaur myth isn't limited to just one interpretation.
No, not at all.
It can hold multiple meanings, even contradictory ones.
It's multifaceted, like all good myths.
Yeah, they're constantly evolving, changing with each retelling.
That's part of what makes them so powerful.
So relevant, even after all these years.
And it reminds us that even a seemingly simple story
Can have so much depth.
The Minotaur wasn't just a monster.
And the labyrinth wasn't just a maze.
There's always more to uncover, more to explore.
I think that's what I love about mythology.
Me too.
It's like these ancient stories are still speaking to us today.
In ways we're still trying to understand.
Well, I think we covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
From the Minotaur's strange birth,
To his imprisonment in the labyrinth.
Theseus's heroic victory.
The tragic fates of Ariadne and Aegis.
We even touched on those different interpretations of the Minotaur.
And what they tell us about the cultures that created them.
If you're listening and this conversation has sparked your curiosity, well, this is really just the beginning.
There's a whole world of mythology out there waiting to be explored.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions,